This conference will now be recorded.
So today we're going to talk about CloudFront, a service which uses the content distribution network as the CDN technology, right? So this is, I think, when we talked about our first initial classes, we talked about uh, availability zone regions, availability zones, and edge locations. I hope you guys remember on the analogy we talked about the post office analogy. That is the edge location where your contents are cached at the nearest data center, smallest nearest data center, which is closest to the user. Like Chennai has two, Bangalore has three, right? So that's what we talked about the edge location. Now, the CloudFront is a service which actually uses CDN technology to push the contents closest to the user. So we are going to talk about this service and we are going to do hands-on and see how it is getting pushed to the closest to the edge location. Okay, that's what we are going to talk about. So CloudFront uses content delivery network as your technology, and your Netflix, uh, Udemy, and other sites, right? They all use content delivery network wherever they do streaming of data, right? Streaming of data. If you take Udemy, the learning platform, right? They stream the video. They stream the video to you, but you cannot download that video, but they will stream you, and you will see the contents coming in without any breaks. The reason for that is they use this CDN to push everything to your local cache, edge location, closest to you. That is why it's very fast that you are able to access Netflix or whatever it is, right? So the main advantage is it improves the read performance. The content is cached at the edge. So there are about not 216, there are about now 280 points of presence globally, edge location, and you can also prevent some of the attacks like DDoS attacks. DDoS attacks is nothing but distributed denial of service. Distributed denial of service. I'll let you know what is that. And you can integrate with other security tools like Shield and then WAF, that is called Web Application Firewall. So you can integrate these services into AWS to kind of protect from DDoS attacks. So you will not be able to kind of, your legitimate users will get the page. So what is this DDoS attack? You will come across this a lot of times in your organization or if you read any article. So DDoS attacks is nothing but, say for example, I have a site called example.com, right? And my users, I have a legitimate user. I am a legitimate user. So what I will do, I will get into example.com, buy something and do something, right? So what the attackers will do, attackers will write some programs to constantly hit the URL. So what will happen? All the response will go to the those hackers' request, and I, as a legitimate user, will not get access to the application. The performance will be slow. That is called denial of service. I will not get the service, right? So that is called DDoS attacks. So what they will do? This service can be integrated with other services like WAF and Shield, where you can configure saying if the request comes continuously from one particular IP or set of IPs, block that, right? So that your legitimate users will get the page that whatever they want. So that's called denial of service attack. DDoS is distributed denial of service. DOS is denial of service. And you can also expose external HTTPS and talk to internal HTTPS backend. You can do that. So CloudFront will have its own URL, and there is a certificate generated default in CloudFront, and you get a dedicated URL for that. And that URL will have some random characters. And using Route 53, the last service that we read, we can map our own ID to this one. Okay, so that also we can do. So we have points of presence in Bangalore 3, Chennai 2, and we have a lot of edge locations in Asia and other across the globe. So all the content will be pushed to this one. So CloudFront is a web service that distributes content with low latency and high data transfer speeds. So what happens in the CloudFront is the content is pushed to the edge location through the Amazon's backbone network. So there is no any delay. But after it is pushes to the edge location, I have to browse from my home to the nearest edge location. Since there is something to in Chennai, my traffic from my house till that edge location, wherever in Chennai alone, it has to travel through the public network. It don't have to travel the whole world to go to US and take my source, right? So that's advantage here. So it will be very fast and low latency. So since the contents are cached at all the edge locations in the world, so whoever is trying to access my page will get the page immediately. They're used for dynamic, static, and streaming and interactive content. It's used for all those things. And the service is used for ingress to upload your objects or egress to distribute content. So predominantly it is used to distribute your content. Very small piece of thing they're using for upload, because you cannot create any application in the content edge location. You cannot create EC2, nothing. So it's always used for a static distribution of your content. So all the streaming applications will use this service. So you can use your ZoneFX DNS name on CloudFront. What is ZoneFX? I told you it's a root domain, right? So www.example.com is called ZoneFX naked domain or root domain, right? So they're called root domain. You can use that domain to map to your CloudFront distributions domain that you can do. So CloudFront supports wildcard CNAME. So you can purchase you can create a certificate for your domain so that you can use as a HTTPS. Amazon CloudFront edge locations and regional edge caches. Edge location is a location where content is cached. Requests are automatically routed to the nearest edge location. The edge locations are not tied to any availability zones or regions. They are entirely different. Regional edge caches are located between origin web servers and the global edge location and have larger cache. So that's like your district head post office, right? Which holds a lot of letters. Whereas your post office near to your house is your actual edge location. Regional edge caches have larger cache width than any individual edge location, so your objects remain in cache at those for a longer period of time. Regional edge caches aim to get closer to the user. So your letter comes from there to your headquarters and it stays there for a long time, even though it is not delivered, or if the post offices local post offices having more work or something, they can release it tomorrow also. So it will be in the regional edge cache for a longer time. So this is how it works. So I have a bucket I have my static website running in bucket, S3 bucket in Australia region. So what happens is, if you don't use the CloudFront service to distribute the content closest to the user, this user has to travel over public internet all way around this Asia and come here, right? And US guy needs to travel all over the world to access this content. If you use this CloudFront service, this service will push this content closest to the user. These are all edge locations to the user, and user needs to access only through the edge location. If when it's trying to access the edge location, if the content is there, then it will serve the user immediately. If it is not there, it will go and check for the regional edge cache. If it is not there in the regional edge cache, then it will go to the source, take back the content and give it to the user. While giving it back, it will put a copy in the regional as well as the local edge cache. So next time any other user from the same location tries to, or nearby location tries to access the page, he will be getting the page from the cache directly instead of taking it from the CloudFront. So that's what we have to, we'll see how this works. So there are different origins for this CloudFront. There can be an S3 bucket can be one of the origin, and S3 website can be an origin, or you can have custom origin. That is, you can have an EC2, but EC2 you cannot have it as a direct origin. You need to place it before your application load balancer, and your application load balancer can be one of your origin. And any other HTTP packet that you wanted in on-prem, you can use your CloudFront service. So S3 bucket for distributing files and caching them at the edge location. So S3 bucket, when we talked about S3 bucket website, we have to have the S3 bucket policy as your bucket should be public. Only then your websites will be available. So what they are doing in CloudFront is they are having an additional security called CloudFront Origin Access, CloudFront Origin Access Identity. So additional, apart from the public, you also need to have this permission set up, so that what will happen whenever the traffic comes only through CloudFront, you will be allowing it to access the content from the S3 bucket. The advantage here is, like, you can make your public private after you add this OAI. And When you sit for your exam or for your interview, when you hear the term OAI, Origin Access Identity, okay, it refers to CloudFront service, not any other service. Okay, only CloudFront service has OAI out of 360 services of AWS. So when you see this term OAI in your exam or an interview, please think about CloudFront service. CloudFront can be used to ingress to upload files to S3, and S3 website we must enable the bucket as a static website, and we can use that as the origin or the source. And this is how it will work, right? So you have your S3 bucket origin, and you have S3 bucket policy plus your OAI attached. And whenever a user, say from outside coming to Los Angeles, for example, what will happen? Using the CloudFront, all the content will be pushed to the edge location here, edge location of Los Angeles, and this guy will access it from here. And what it will do, when the request comes, okay, it will validate whether the OAI is allowed or not. If the OAI is allowed, then it will give the content back to the edge location to the user. So this is how it happens whenever you try to do it from different parts of the world. So what you have only one source, but you are moving it to all the edge locations in the world, so that the closest the users can access from the edge location. So CloudFront, you can have ALB or EC2 as origin. Again, EC2 cannot be a direct origin. Okay, EC2 should be placed before your load balancer. Load balancer can only act as a origin. Okay, let's go and see what is happening, right? And how do we do this? So CloudFront has some additional costs as well. I'll let you know. But anyway, still you can work and go and remove the distribution. Before we create the CloudFront, let's go and create an S3 bucket as a static website and just go normally there and see what is there, right? Let's go and create a bucket. Again, one more thing you need to keep in mind. If you want your own domain name to be mapped to the CloudFront's domain name, then your bucket name should match the domain name. Otherwise, it will not work. So what I will do, I will create my bucket name as tree.chandradc.org, right? This is my domain, chandradc.org. Let us create this bucket. The bucket can be created in this DNS format, but it cannot be created as an IP address like 1.2.3.4. Okay, so let's go and upload. So I have to upload my index file. I'm just creating a static website, right? We know how to create that we've already seen how to create that. So let's go and create this error and index both. Let's upload both first, then we will go and see what is there in that. Let's upload this image also, because I want to show you how the contents are getting cached. So we put it under images. Okay. So now you go back here and go to the bucket and create a folder called images and upload some image there with that name. Then we should be able to see that, right? Images, create this and get into the images and upload an image. Tree.jpg, right? Go upload this. Okay, now go and access this. See, this I have opened internally. Okay, this I have opened internally. Okay, now go back to your index.html and open. What happened? Images only, right? Images. Okay, let's hold on this. You will not get it because we have to make it public. Let's make it public and enable the static website. Then we will come and see here. So go to the properties, go to the end and enable the static website hosting. Enable this and give your index document as index.html and error as error.html. Error is optional. It's up to you if you want to give or not. It's not a problem. Save these changes. Once you do this, what will happen? Go to there, you will get a public IP address. Click on that. You will not have access because the bucket is not public. We have to make it public. To make it public, go to the permissions, edit this and remove this block all public access, save it and do a confirm. Type it correctly. Okay, now go back and click on the bucket policy and go ahead and do a policy generator. And what we are going to do, we are going to do a S3 bucket policy. You should allow for everybody which service, specifically the get object service, right? That is for the reading. Get object. Right? What is the ARN? Go back here, copy the ARN here, and go and say this bucket and all the documents inside this bucket. Add the statement, generate the policy, and copy this entire stuff. Go back here and paste it here. Okay, you're done now. Just go ahead and save this. Okay. Now go back here. It's all public. So now you should be able to get your website. See here. So now our website is ready. So this is a normal website. So this is basically the source and we are directly accessing it from the bucket. Okay, we are directly accessing it to the bucket. So this bucket is in Northern Virginia, but I am in Chennai. So how this is getting accessed? It is going through your public internet, right? It has to travel the full world. Go there. Now this is a very small, just a small website, so it's very fast. But assume that you have a very big website or very big page. It will take some time to load. Okay, so that is how you can see the latency. So when we saw the VPC endpoints, I showed you how that we are accessing it through the internet for our S3 bucket, right? So similarly, we are going through this one. Now this is fine. We have the source ready. So let's go and try to create a CloudFront distribution and see what are the different options we have and how to configure this. So it always creates as a distribution. Go ahead and create a distribution and choose an origin. So I'm going to choose Amazon S3 and we already have origin. So choose that bucket. Origin path is optional. This name, whatever name you want, you can give. If you don't give, it will just take the domain name itself. Whether you want origin access to be public or access control or latency access identities, you want to add anything. OAI, we will add OAI later. Let's make it public first. And you can also add some custom header to your pages. You want to add some custom header, and based on that, you want to do something, you can add your custom headers. Then, as I told you, if you want to enable shield, WAF, and everything, right, you can put all those here, right, to avoid your DDoS attacks. Go to the additional, you can say connection attempts, how many connection timeout, response, keep alive, all these things are default here. These are all timeouts, you can set up them. Then very important is cache behavior. Cache behavior default pattern is star. So higher the number, higher the precedence here. Okay. Compress objects automatically. Yes, when you push it to the edge location, you compress it and send it so that it will be faster. Then viewer protocol, whether the viewers can access this using HTTP and HTTPS, or whenever they put HTTPS, automatically it has to get redirected to HTTPS, or they should access only through HTTPS. So for now, we will have HTTP and HTTPS, okay, because we have to generate our certificate and all, right? Then what are the allowed methods, HTTP methods for this one, right? For this distribution. Right now, for this distribution, we are simply going to read it. So we'll have get and head, but we have option to put, delete, patch, and everything, right? You can do that. Restrict viewer access. This is where that if you are having any premium paid customers for you and you wanted only them to download some URL, then you can go and say restrict this one, and you have to have a trusted signer, and somebody need to sign the URL, and that URL will be valid only for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and you send it to the user who has paid that alone, right? So like that, you can have restrict viewer access. Cache key and origin request. Cache key policy, origin request policy, it's recommended you can use this, or you can use a legacy cache settings like this, where you want your headers and cookies and all those things. And object caching, you can customize CSE. The minimum TTL that will be cached in the edge location, this much is maximum and default and all those things, right? You can go set it. It's a legacy way of setting, and this is now recommended way of setting. Okay, and go ahead and select the cached policy, caching optimized default policy when CloudFront compression is enabled. So we've enabled compression. So this will be our policy. You want to view the policy, go back here and you can view what that policy is trying to do, right? So these are all the things that you can see that policy will be enabled for this. Similarly, origin request policy. Origin request policy is where you can say user agent referrer headers, whether you want to pass here the browser information in the header, you want to enable the CORS. CORS is nothing but cross origin resource sharing. Okay, so those things are all you can do it here. But for now, we are not going to use this. This is an optional. Let's leave it as it is. Response header policy is also optional. You want to send any response back, whether you want to allow CORS. Suppose what you mean by CORS means cross origin resource sharing. If in your application you are using image from google.com, and but I am in amazon.com, right? So both are different domains. So when you try to access your cross origin resource, you want to share between different domains, then you need to kind of enable this one. Okay, modern browsers need this. This CORS functionality is not the functionality of AWS, it's functionality of the browser. Okay, so there are some additional settings here. Whether you want smooth streaming, right? If you put a smooth streaming, then you have to use your IAS, and if you are having some IAS, then you can use a smooth streaming. And then if you are trying to upload any document, right? If you're trying to upload any document, then if you're having any sensitive information in that, you can go and encrypt those fields. You can go and encrypt those fields. So you can go and choose a field level encryption. Here, real-time logs. You can go and put your real-time logs and put it in the wherever that you want to read a real-time log, or you can create a configuration. Go to the CloudWatch, create a configuration, and you can select it here. Okay. So this is what this one is. This section is about Lambda function. When we will talk about Lambda, we will see more about this. But just remember this: you can have some Lambda function, a function code. You can write and you can process your request and response when it reaches your CloudFront and origin and vice versa, right? So this is called Lambda. And if you have Lambda, it is called Lambda at edge. Lambda at edge because we are using an edge location. Okay, optional for now. But when we talk about Lambda, we will come back again and see here. Then price class, very, very important, right? How you want, where you want your, do you want all the edge locations in the world to be pushed, your content to be pushed, or only to North America, South and Europe? North America, Europe, Asia, Middle East, and Africa, you can go and select based upon your requirement. They always recommend all the edge location because that's for the best performance, right? Tomorrow you don't know, your user suddenly maybe in Japan, tomorrow they're coming up, then you don't know, right? So it's always better to go for all the edge location. And you can also include your WAF here, web application firewall. If you have any, you can select so that DDoS attack will be prevented. Alternate domain name is what we will see later. We will see how to map my domain name to the CloudFront's domain name. Right? To do that, we need certificate. I'll show you how to generate this certificate and how to use it. Right? Supported HTTP versions. We have HTTP 1, 2, or 3. So by default it is 2. You can use the 2. Very important. This particular field, though it says optional, we have to have it here. Default route. Whenever you try to access the URL, what will be your default page? My default page will be index.html. You need to give this here, otherwise it will not work. Okay. Then standard logging. Whether you want any logs viewer delivered to Amazon S3 bucket. When you say yes, the login will go to the S3 bucket. You need to select a bucket. You need to create a bucket for that. IPv6, it's on by default. If you want, you can turn it off. And description for this CloudFront distribution. This is what we have. Any questions, guys, in this? Okay. So creating CloudFront distribution will take few minutes because it has to touch all the edge locations, right? Just give it a minute. Okay. Go to the distributions. You can see here it says deploying, right? So it will take some time to deploy. While it is deploying, we'll just quickly go inside and check what is that. See, this is the domain name I talked about, right? This is the domain name I talked about. You will get a domain name with cloudfront.net as the domain, and you'll have some random characters here, and this will vary for each and everybody. Right? This is the Amazon resource name for this resource. Last modified is still deploying. It will get the date. Once you get the date, means it is deployed. Then these are all the settings that whatever that we did, right? Go back to the origin. See, this is the origin that we had, S3 origin. Go and create this and say edit the origin, and you can see all the origin here. But whatever we saw there, right? Whatever we saw there, that is the origin. You can create your own origin, and then you can do. Very important is behavior. I told you, right? Default is star. It doesn't match anything, it will go to star. It will go and push all the content inside this bucket. Or you can specifically say you want to only push / images. And you can also give some error page here. Right? When the status code is 404, instead of sending 404, you can go and customize the error page, say which response page path you can put some response and put that path there. So it will say, hey, we are under maintenance. Please take a look, something, right? So those things you can send a error response, custom response instead of just sending the default response. We'll talk about zero restriction and invalidation after we see how it is getting distributed, right? So if it deploy, it will take some time. So what we will do meanwhile, we will get inside this, copy this URL. This is my bucket website bucket URL that I'm accessing directly the origin, and this is the URL that I'm accessing through CloudFront. Okay, now it has pushed to my edge location, the nearest to my edge location, right? It has pushed to my edge location. Now still it is still deploying. The reason for that is there are 250 edge locations, right? Around 300. So it has to push to each and every edge location. Of course, maybe it came to Chennai quickly, I don't know. But that is you need to wait for it to completely get deployed. Okay. So now there are two things here. Now, once it is done, we will try to prove that the contents are cached at the edge location. Okay. Then we will go ahead and do some other use cases. So right now, this is my bucket. So see this here, when it says tree.chandra.org, it is my bucket directly, and this is my CloudFront URL from my edge location. Okay. So once this is done, now see it says last modified. That means it is done. Now what we will do, we will prove that it is the cache that we are accessing from the edge location, not the actual content. To do that, what we will do, we will go back to our S3 bucket and upload another picture and see if we are able to see it in the cache immediately or not. I told you these caches will be there for 24 hours. Okay, that is where we set the minimum and maximum TTL value. So please stop me if you have any queries. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to upload the same tree.jpg, the file name, but the picture will be different. Let's see. Go to with some documents. Yeah, I think that's a different picture. It's the same name. Okay. Otherwise, I have to change my index.html every time, which I don't want to do. Now, this is my bucket. This is my source. So I am accessing it. Okay. It's the same image that we took. Okay. Where is that image? In 1 minute, we check. Here the image actually changed. Okay, so now this is the new image that is on the source. Go to your CloudFront distribution and keep on refreshing until tomorrow. This will be this picture only. That means we are accessing it from edge location. The cache is there. Okay, so we are now not able to see the new image here, even though we uploaded it because it's already cached here. Okay, so this is the thing just to prove that the CloudFront is working. This is the only proof that we can say that CloudFront is working. Any questions, guys, here? Okay, that's fine. Now, what we will do, see, now I'm able to access my origin directly here because this one is public, and I'm also able to access this public URL, the CloudFront. So what we can do, we can restrict that nobody should be able to access this directly, only through when they come through CloudFront, they can do that, right? That's what we are going to see. Let's go here. Go to the origins, select the origin, and edit it here. And before that, I just want to show you something, just to make sure we are all clear. Under the permissions, go to the bucket policy. This is what we are seeing now, right? So allow all resources get object for this bucket. So that's why it is public, right? Just leave this in. Let's go back to CloudFront. This is my origin. Now, what I'm going to do, bucket can restrict access only to CloudFront. Put this, okay. Now, origin access OAI, origin access identity. We wanted to create this. Okay, origin access control settings. Please go ahead and do that. Bucket policy. We can go and say that bucket policy must be allowed to IAM. Let it be like this. Let's go and see. Save these changes. To create a control setting. This will be the origin access identity that will be created for you. Okay. Go back to the CloudFront and go to origin access. You'll be able to see this origin access created for you. Right? Now go back here, go to something back and come back to the permissions. Okay. We still did not get it. go to the distributions, go to the origins, edit the origin, and now you will see use CloudFront origin access to access the, yeah, sorry, this one, not this. Okay, so let's go and create a new OAI. Okay, now we will say yes, update the bucket policy automatically. So it will go and add an entry in the bucket policy. And once it adds here, go back, come back to the permissions. You can see there is an entry here. Automatically it is there. So what it is saying, the difference between here and here, principal is all. So it is public here. Principal is only when the request comes from this origin access identity, OAI KOKH, right? Go back to origin identity again. You will see that KOKH. KOKH is the origin access. You will have, where is that? Okay, and this is the one that is created. So it will only come through this one. Now, even though we say this one, you are still able to access from the S3 bucket and from this one. So in order to avoid from S3 bucket, what we need to do, go back to this one, do a edit and remove the public access. So which means you don't have to have your objects as public here. Okay, so whenever you are able to come only through CloudFront, you will be allowed to get this object. Go back, save these changes. Now if you see, the objects can be public, but it is not public actually. You go and access your, you will get your error because you cannot access the bucket directly. You can only access it through your CloudFront URL. So this is one thing. Okay, so create your origin access identity for your distribution and apply to your bucket. Then you will get the correct response. So this is our domain name. So what we are going to do, we wanted to set up a alternate domain name, right? Because I have my own domain. Let's try to set up our own domain. For that, go and do a edit. Scroll down. This one. No. Go to origin. To the origin and edit. Somewhere it was there. I don't know. Forget it. Its name should be somewhere here only. Yeah, here, alternate domain name. So we need to create this domain name. Let's map this one to our domain name so our users can access it, right? Go to the CloudFront and add an item and give your domain name tree.dc.org. Okay, then you have to have a SSL certificate. I don't have any certificate. I'm going to use the certificate from ACM, which is Amazon Certificate Manager. I'll show you how to create the certificate. So we have to give a fully qualified domain name. So I'm using it for tree.chandradc.org, and it's going to be DNS validation. So we have to create some records. It will go and create a record for you. So go ahead and request this. So just wait for some minute. Then once it is created, it will ask you to pending validation. Go here and click on create records in Route 53. This will go and create a record as CNAME, just a dummy record, just to make sure that we have that domain. Okay, successfully it has created this one. So let's go back to route 53. So again, keep in mind, no one service will give you all the solutions. So you need to use multiple services to do one full use case. Go back here and you see this is the record that has put automatically from there just to validate our domain. Okay, now my domain is validated. And if you go back to certificates and say now it has already issued the certificate, go back to the CloudFront, refresh here and select the certificate. Okay, this certificate should match with the tree dot this one with this one. Okay, then it's asking for the TLS policy. This is the recommended the 1.2. Go ahead and select that and go ahead and save these changes. Now, just because I have done this alternate domain name as tree.chandradc.org, now if I try to access this, let's go and see what happens, right? Nothing will happen. The reason for that is we need to create a record here, right? We need to create a record here. So let's go create a record saying tree dot this one, okay, and make it alias and choose your CloudFront distribution. Okay, this is the region. Go ahead and choose. See here, it's showing the CloudFront distribution. Again, your bucket name and this one should be the same. Okay, and just go ahead and say create record. Now what will happen? Your tree.chandradc.org is mapping to this one. Just give it a minute. There's a problem with browser always. Go to a private window, access it, it will be getting. Wait for some time, you will get this. So we asked it to do both HTTP and HTTPS. Okay, so let's try both once it is up. Okay. Something that we missed. It's correct only, right? Yeah, everything is right. Wait for some time. Sometimes this DNS flush happens very late. And once it is there, then it will map to our this one. It's a DNS probe issue. Not resolved post. Some issues there. Yeah, we got it now, right? See, so now it is mapped your, instead of giving this, if this is a random number, instead of giving that, you give your own this one. Okay, so this is how we can map our the generated domain name to this one. Now, what happens here is by default, when you have this CloudFront URL distribution creator, Amazon creates a CloudFront.net star.cloudfront.net as a certificate. So automatically certificate will be there. But for us, we need to create a certificate with that name. See here, there is a lock button here. So this is what it's saying. So connection is secure. You can go and see all the information here. Okay, so this is what happened. Now, as I told you, let's go back and see why your image is still showing the old one, though we uploaded the new one, right? Because there is a cache is there. So what we can do, we can invalidate the cache. Okay, if you create an invalidation, you have to pay money for that. Okay, but let me show you. So suppose you want to push something immediately, right? And create an invalidation. It will create the invalidation, and as I told you, whenever you do something, it will get deployed or pushed to all the edge locations. So you need to little bit wait. See here, now it has been proved that since we invalidated the cache, it got the new object. So CloudFront uses the edge location to cache the content. So this is what the proof is, right? See, okay. Now let's talk about another important feature called geo restriction. So you can restrict who can see what, right? So there are two types of restrictions. One is whitelist and blacklist. So you can say some countries you can allow or some countries you can deny. Say for example, I don't want people from India to view this page, right? Say tomorrow if our government says Facebook is banned in India, how they will do immediately? They will go and put our India as a blacklist. So based upon our IP, that we will not get the page. So you can use this geo restriction feature to do that. Okay, so let's go and see how to do that also, right? I don't know if anybody in the call is outside India. If they are there, they can access it and they should be able to access. Let's go to the CloudFront, get into the distribution, go to geo restriction and go edit and see there are no restrictions, means it will go for everything. You have an allow list. These are the list of countries you can allow or you can blacklist. So block list is always better because block list will be little smaller than allow list. You cannot say allow 225 countries, right? Instead of selecting 225 times, go and say block list and block your country. I want to block for India, for example, right? India, right? And save changes. Okay, as you make these changes, again, go back to the distribution. You will see it is deployed. Just give it a minute. Okay, I am trying to access. I am from India. I am trying to access. Once it is pushed, completely deployed, just see what happens. I'm trying to access it from India. We have blocked India. So for that, you just need to wait for this one to complete and push the whole stuff into. See here, the Amazon CloudFront distribution is configured to block access from your country. So if any site that say any site that is not legitimate in the government or adult sites and all those things, they kind of restrict like this one. Okay, so if somebody else apart from India try to access this URL, they will be able to see the page. Okay, so this is how you can do a geo restriction, and you can block specific countries. You can block multiple countries also. It's not only one country. You can block multiple countries. Geo restriction, edit, and you can select multiple countries. I want to restrict for Afghanistan, right? You can go and select like this for multiple countries. Okay. So what we will do, we'll go back and say no restriction because we'll have to see the page, right? Wait for some time. Once it is deployed, then we will be getting your page again. Okay. So this is what your CloudFront will do and CloudFront can do for you. Okay. Any questions, guys, so far? Now, your CloudFront, and you remember we talked something about S3 cross region replication. Both looks kind of similar, right? I can create a bucket in Northern Virginia, I can create a bucket in Mumbai and create a cross region replication. Whenever I put some documents there, I'll be able to see. But there is a problem, right? With CloudFront, it uses the global edge network and the files are cached for a day or so. It's very good for static content. Whereas cross region replication, you have to go and set up the bucket in each and every region, which is not possible. And moreover, you have only 25 regions, but you have 250 edge locations. Okay, so files are updated in near real time. That is, with cross region replication, as you put your files within 15 minutes, you will get the file. But whereas in the CloudFront, you have to wait for that until it's pushed to the cache. So cross-region replication is different and CloudFront is different. Just note that difference. Right? So there is something called CloudFront signed URL, signed cookies. So if you want to distribute your paid content to the premium users in the world, then you have to use this CloudFront signed URL or signed cookie. So your signed URL means it will come up. The URL will be very long and it will come up with a expiration date. You can include IP ranges and you can put some trusted signers who can see and all those things, right? And if it is a movie or something that you are sending it to your paid customer, make it a short. So suppose if, for example, today there is a movie releasing, right? Maybe some movie, let's call it as AB, right? A movie called AB is getting released today and you have already subscribed with Netflix. Netflix will send a link to you at 10 a.m. today, and it will say please download the movie, and the URL or the link will be valid only for 15 to 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes depending upon the size of the movie, right? After you download and again you try that, it will go off. That URL will get expired. That is called your signed URL. Signed URL will be used when you want to access individual files. Signed cookies is to access multiple files. Okay, one signed cookie for many files. Very important. If it's a shared content, your TTL should be very small. So the expiration will be in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 4 hours, and all those things. Private content, if it's private to you, you can make it to last for years also, because nobody will be having access. If you're sharing it to someone, then you need to make sure that you have some expiration. So CloudFront signed URL will work like this only. When the user clicks on that URL, you get a signed URL back, and using that URL, they will be able to access the S3 object here. And again, it has to be validated using our OAI. Without OAI, you will not get back your this one. Okay. So we also have something called S3 pre-signed URL. You have something called S3 pre-signed URL. You can sign your, suppose if I want to share one document from S3, you can sign that and send the URL to somebody. So the difference between CloudFront and S3 pre-signed URL is, for CloudFront S3, you can allow access to path no matter the origin, right? You can say you only cache /images, but here you have to be the whole URL, the whole objects will be there. You'll be able to see. This account-wide key pair, only root can manage it. Here IAM, whoever's having IAM users or who created the pre-signed URL, they will be the principal, signing principal. You can filter by IP, path, date, expiration, everything. Here you can only have expiration by time. That's all, nothing else. You can leverage caching features. Here there is no any caching features. So this is how it works. CloudFront signed URL, it will go to the edge location. From there it reads the origin. Pre-signed URL is directly to the origin without anything in the middle. Right? This is what we have for our CloudFront. Okay. Once the restriction is banned, removed, you can go and check. You will be able to see your page. Again, these DNS domains need to be flushed. Just give it some time, then you will get it. So this is what we have for CloudFront. So I would like you guys to try create a distribution like this. Look at my video, do this, and go to origin and see if you can create another origin, right? Create another origin like an elastic load balancer, right? Create one EC2, create a load balancer. In the EC2, you put Apache and put something there, or put an index.html page which will refer the image from S3. Okay, which will refer the image from S3. Put it there and use this as an additional origin and try to access that page and see if you are getting the image correctly in that Apache page, right? So those are all the things that you can try and see whether we can add our additional this one. Okay. Fine. Any questions, guys? Okay. Let's do one thing. Let's talk about the next topic also. The next one is very simple. It's just for you to know, right? Because sometimes you might be using it in your organization for automation and stuff, and that is nothing but your already we have seen this IAM, but just wanted to give you a little bit more insight into the IAM. So IAM is a service we saw, the very first service we saw IAM, how to create users and stuff. So IAM stands for Identity and Access Management, and your whole AWS security is there. You can create users, groups, and roles. Root account should never be used, and it should always be protected using MFA, the multi-factor authentication. We saw all these things, and then policies are written in JSON object, right? So this is how it works in policy. IAM is a global service, so permissions are governed by policies. You have multi-factor authentication, which can be set up for your all your users. IAM has predefined managed policies and custom policies. You can create your own policies, or you can use AWS managed policy. All right. So as a thumb rule, we always need to give minimum amount of permissions for any users. That's called principle of least privilege, PLP, principle of least privilege. So if somebody is joining your team, don't give admin access, give him only the access to the resources what he needs to work on, and keep adding more resources, but never give admin access, right? That's what they say. So this is for your normal use. What happens in organization, right? So we know that we have a restriction in IAM that you can only use or create 5,000 users. What about your company has 10,000 users, right? So we can use IAM federation. You can federate your identity. You can federate your identity using SAML-based authentication, like your Active Directory or your Facebook and other logins, right? You can use them to log into that. So once you configure that, what will happen when you log into your company's profile, then you will get the same username password. You can use it to log into your AWS. We will see how that will happen, right? That's called federation. So very important thing, one IAM user only can be created for one entity, and then one role per one application. IAM credential should never be shared. Never write your IAM credentials in the code, and don't ever commit your IAM credentials into public repositories like GitHub, Bitbucket, and etc. Right? The reason for this is I have had a very bad experience with this. I myself had this. I was trying to do something. I accidentally put my access key and secret key hard coded and put it in the GitHub repository. Within 30 minutes, I got an email from Amazon, and they have blocked my account. Okay, I didn't know why. Then I had to call them, and then I came to know that I have committed my credentials in the GitHub, like public repository. So they used to run some jobs to check whether if there are any keywords like access key, secret key, okay, passwords, and all those things. If they find out, they will immediately go ahead and block your account. So never ever commit your IAM credentials into any public repository. Never use root account except for initial setup. That's what we did. And never use your root IAM credential. We always we created an IAM user, and we are using that only. Okay. There is something called STS. STS is nothing but secure token service, security token service. So you define an IAM role within your account or cross account, and define who can access that role, and someone will be assuming that role, and they can go and perform the activity. So use AWS STS, secure token service, to retrieve credentials and impersonate the IAM role you have access to. It's called Active Go API. So you get a temporary credentials which are valid between 15 minutes to 1 hour. Within that 1 hour, if you are able to access, then you will get that. Otherwise, you will have to regenerate the token again. So this is how it works. Okay, your security token service will use to assume a role. So when you are using a cross account access, then this is how they do. And there is a very important product called AWS Cognito. Cognito is the one which directly provides access to your AWS resources from client side, like mobile, web applications and all, right? If you have noticed in some sites, when you try to log in, they will say either log in through Facebook, Twitter, or some other social media login, or create your own accounts. What we'll do, instead of we creating our account, we will log into our Facebook login, and we will get access to that application. How is that actually happening, right? That's what we need to see. So what will happen is, when you try to log into using Facebook, your Facebook, no user will be created in the target application, like say AWS, right? no user will be created in AWS. When you log into Facebook and authenticate, your Facebook will do authentication and authorization, and it will send a key to the AWS, and AWS will verify the key and send back the temporary credential back to Facebook, and Facebook will redirect you to the AWS with the correct credential, right? You'll be able to log into credential. So now that means you have not directly created any user in the AWS, but you have went through the Facebook login, right? So that is called Web Federation, Web Identity Federation, Web Identity, okay, Web Identity Federation. So that is where you can provide temporary access to write something to S3 bucket using your Facebook login. So we don't have to create IAM users for all our app users. Suppose you are having an online gaming application, and today Sunday, you are going to create a mega event, right? There may be millions of people logging in all over the world to access your application and play the game, right? What will happen? They will not be able having access to your AWS resource. Everything will be in AWS, right? So in order to avoid that, they will use their social media login to login, and then we will have pre-configured to use your Facebook or Google login. So you will log into identity provider and remain anonymous and get a temporary access back to the identity pool. And this credential will come with a predefined IAM policy and with the permissions. So this is how it looks like, right? These are your identity providers. Like CUP is nothing but your cognito user pool. So you can keep some limited number of users here in this pool. And then you have Google, Facebook, and you can keep all these guys here. And once somebody logs in from Facebook, Facebook will send a token. It will authenticate with your federated identity and call this security token service to get a temporary credential, give it back to the user, and user will be able to access the resources in AWS. Okay, and we saw all these resource-based policies and IAM rules. We saw all these things that you can go ahead and this is the same thing. And whenever you log into AWS, how it actually evaluates whether you have permission to something or not. This is the evaluation logic. It actually happens. You need not get into each and every detail. This is specifically for the professional exam, but still it's good to know how that actually happens, right? So the decision starts with deny. You remember when we talked about in the first class, I told you, remember your dad whenever you are seeing any policy. First D stands for explicit deny. Second A stands for allow. Third D stands for implicit deny, right? So decision starts with deny. If anything is denied, it will evaluate all. If deny is there, yes, come out. After this, nothing will happen. The first evaluation itself is deny evaluation. So if it is explicitly denied, nothing will be there, just come out. You will not be able to get into AWS. If deny is not there, it will go to the next step and evaluate the organization. SCP is service control policies. That's called service control policies. It's a top level policy for AWS. It will go and check there. There also there is no deny. Then go to the next one and go and check on individual resource. Individual resource, like I logged in as my IAM user. Check on that whether that guy is allowed or not. If he is not allowed, then go back to next to the if there are any IAM permission boundaries that are being set for him, right? So if that is not set, then go back to the session policy, and then last go to the identity based policy whether he is allowed to access that particular resource or not, right? So this is the evaluation logic it basically uses. You can go through this URL if you want. This will give you details of each and everything that is happening. But for our associate exam that you guys are aiming at, you don't have to worry about this logic, but at least it's good practice to know, right, how things happen in the background, right? So you guys can go here and start checking how this actually happens. So this is the picture. This is a new picture. That's the old picture that I have taken. So you can go and see each and everything, right? Deny evaluation. By default, all requests are denied. This is called implicit deny. Without any permission, they are implicit deny. We saw that, right? So everything is denied. Then if it looks for any code that denies, then it is called an explicit deny. That's what the first D stands for. Then it goes to organization SCP, then it goes to resource-based policies, then it goes to like this one by one, right? You can go and see all those things, and you can go through the list of things that you wanted to see. At last, it will go to your session policies. So all these things are different. Show like this each and every permissions. You can go through this if you want to read more exhaustively how this evaluation logic happens, but this is how it happens, right? But don't worry too much about this. Please remember what we talked about whenever you see the policy as DAD, right? How to evaluate the policy like this. Okay. With that in mind, I want you to let me know what will happen to this. What is this policy? What this policy can do, cannot do. Suppose this policy is attached to somebody, what he can do, what he cannot do. Can anyone say me what can he perform? SQS is a service, create queue, delete queue, describe instances with this policy. Very simple, right? Just now we talked about. So the first thing is always check for delete. Yeah. No. The question here is, this is the policy. Okay. This is the policy that is presented to you. They're asking you, can we create a delete queue? Will this policy allow him to delete a queue? Will this policy allow him to create a queue? Will this policy access him to describe instances? So now you are given a question in the exam. So can someone say me based on the logic whether this all what will happen if you attach this policy? So very simple, as I told you, whenever you see any policy, first check for the word deny. Okay, the first thing you need to check is inside the statements, how many statements are there. This is one statement, comma separated. This is another statement. We have two statements. After in these two statements, see whether it is allowed or denied. It says denied. Okay, now what action is denied? All the APIs under SQS are denied. Okay, come back to allow and see whether the same action is overlapping here. Yes, they are saying SQS delete queues allow, but we know that in evaluation of logic, the explicit deny will win. So that means you cannot perform any operations in SQS because you have an explicit deny of SQS dot star, even though you have allow here. So you cannot perform create queue, you cannot perform delete queue, you cannot perform EC2 describe instance because there is no any thing mentioned about EC2, which means it's an implicit deny. It's an implicit deny. This is an explicit deny. Okay. So if you attach this policy, he cannot do anything. That's all. Okay. This is how you need to interpret. So this you will get it in your examination. They may give you some bigger policy and you need to evaluate the logic. Okay. So with this we are done. So any questions, guys, on the CloudFront or IAM? We already seen just a few things, especially the web identity federation and the evaluation logic. Apart from that, nothing new on IAM. Any other thing that you guys have, just let me know. Why I'm just cleaning. Make sure that you clean up this CloudFront. That's very important. And before you clean up this CloudFront, please go ahead and delete your certificate that you got. Delete this. Okay, this certificate cannot be deleted. It is being used by there. Okay, no problem. Just go to Route 53 and delete these two records. Delete the record. So we are done. And go to the CloudFront distribution. You have to disable first. Only then you can delete it. Okay. You have to disable. Once it is disabled, then you can go over and delete it. Okay. So it will start cleaning up everything in the cache, and then you will be able to do it. Okay. Now you don't try to delete this. Just hold on. Until that distribution is done, you cannot go delete this. You can go here and you can go empty your bucket Guys, you need to do some hands-on, otherwise you will not remember. Okay, when I'm saying it, everything will look like it is all easy, but when you actually try is where you will get used to and you will be able to crack your exams, right? Otherwise, it will be very difficult for you. Okay, I'll upload both the text and the ones that are once the recording is available, I will go ahead and upload that. Any questions that you guys have?
No, Chandra.
Okay, fine. All right, great. Thanks. And tomorrow we will meet at the same time. I'll send out the invite again. So tomorrow we will meet and we will talk about other services, and we should try to complete in another 3 classes, maximum 3 or 4 classes, right? We should try to complete it in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, Chandra. And if possible, you can share those links which we
Yeah, I
talked
will
in the
share
starting.
the sample
Yeah,
things that in
some
the
two
net.
samples. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'll share that.
Sure.
I'll share that. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you and have a great day. We will meet tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.